Casey Joyner breaks it down. ESPN.com NFL Insider, as he joins us now with the game review of Eagles and Chiefs. Casey, hopefully, number one, that you guys down there in Florida are doing well. We know it was a tough week for you guys last week.
Yeah, sorry I couldn't be on the show. We got a little visit from Hurricane Irma, and she tore a lot of things apart and things. But the house only had damage to the fence and such, and we're all back home now and got power, and still could use some internet, but that's a small price to pay. So everything's good now.
Well, we're happy to hear that. We're happy to have you back here, and you get a week of football. There was a lot to dive into, but you did a lot of research on this game with the Eagles' offensive line, and today Peterson, some of his explanations are just bizarre. Do you deem that they can't run the ball, Philadelphia, or do you deem that they choose not to run the ball?
I deem that they choose not to run the football because they had 14 planned rushing plays yesterday. And of those 14 planned rushing plays, they had a 50% good blocking rate, meaning they gave their ball carriers good blocking half the time. 44% led the league in good blocking rate last year. So they're getting good enough blocking. They're just deciding not to run the football. Or at least let's put it this way. What I saw on tape on the running plays they did yesterday, there's no reason they shouldn't have tried to run the ball more.
We obviously know that I don't know if you singled out Sayamala at all, but he seemed to have a tough day. Gave up, 4 sacks, and he constantly got beat yesterday. Does having one guy like that constantly getting beat or having a tough day prevent you from, running what you want to run? It seems that if you have a guy that's constantly getting beat, specifically in the interior, that makes running the ball and throwing the ball, for that matter, because you get pressure up the middle. But it makes it tough when you have one leak like that.
Yeah, it does. I mean, if you've got a guard who's struggling, you can move the center over to help and things. You can also just call running plays away from them. And frankly, in all the research I've done over the years, even you can take like the worst guard versus the best guard, and it's only a couple of additional plays a game usually, maybe a couple of 3, which is a lot, but it's not like you can't run the football even if you've got a guard who's having a bad game. So they could have given him protection and done more. And plus, if you've got one guy getting beaten, you have a good offensive line, and the Eagles still, I think, have a very good offensive line talent-wise. Get one guy struggling, then fine, give him help. And I'd rather, if I'm struggling, I got a guard who's struggling, I'd rather him try and go ahead and run block more than try and pass block more.
Are their backs good enough? Doug Peterson was asked that today. Do you have the talent at running back that you need? His answer was a one-word answer, yes. Typically, if you give a one-word answer like that, that might be an underlining story.
Yeah, but the Eagles only averaged 6.9 yards per carry yesterday when they get good blocking. 8.5 is a league average in that category. You'd like to ideally be at 10. So they didn't do very much when they had good blocking yesterday. But even so, if you're getting 7 yards a carry when you are getting good blocking and getting good blocking half the time, yeah, you ought to run the football more. And again, you mentioned Wentz and his issues. If you've got a quarterback, second-year quarterback on the road in a very tough environment at Kansas City and a Kansas City team that can pass rush well, I'm not sure why you want to put – I'd put as little of it into his hands as I possibly could. You have to give him some, but I wouldn't be trying to lean on him more than necessary if I have a running game to lean on. When you've got 3 running backs, why not try and lean on the running game more?
Well, they only gave the ball to Blunt once. That was called back on a penalty, so his official stats had 0 carries. Sproles, they gave it to 10. Smallwood, 3. Which of those guys is the guys they should be leaning on, or do they not have a guy to lean on that they should break it up?
I get Sproles if you're in passing situations and they give you a look in the box that says we can block everybody. That's fine. He's a scat back, and you can do that. That's fine. I would still be giving it to Blunt. You didn't bring him in to just sit him on the bench, and there's no, you weren't in game situations. It's only, it was 3-3 after first quarter. It was 6-3 at halftime. It was 13-10 after 3 quarters. You weren't really in game situations that said you had to get away from your running game and you had to get away from Blunt. So unless there's something else there, unless Blunt's hurt or there's another reason that they don't want to be giving them the football, I would have leaned on running the ball more. Blunt, and again, wear those guys down. If that guard is trying to block a guy if someone else is trying to block a tackle who's having to stop the run a lot more often, it's a lot easier than this. Don't know somebody who's going to be just pass rushing 40 plays a game.
Casey Joyner with us. Casey, how's that unit in pass protection? It seems that Wentz is always scrambling around back there.
Yeah, it's funny. ESPN, their stats and information group, has a thing called pass protection metric. It measures how often the offensive line controls the line of scrimmage. Now, yesterday, the Eagles actually ranked second in the league in that category, which is good. 25%. That was like 13th. So that was kind of mediocre. So they could put my scrimmage, but when they pressure. And the thing is they were allowing that pressure despite the fact that blitz 8.8% of the time, which is the second lowest blitz percentage rate for teams that played this weekend so far. So they allowed the third highest quarterback hit percentage. Added up, and the Eagles did a good job sometimes in the offensive line, but they were inconsistent, especially in pass blocking.
Casey Joyner is here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Eagles and Chiefs. Do you think, Casey, that Doug Peterson has too much confidence in Wentz? Because Mike and I talked about earlier in the show that it's like he has this brand new toy, and he's like, hey, this is great. He just keeps going back to that Wentz. Let's just keep using him.
Yeah, I think he could learn a lesson looking across the sidelines. Because you remember Andy Reid, there was a time when Andy Reid, I believe it was John Clayton, who asked him about running the ball. And Reid's answer essentially was, why would I run the football when I can throw it? like he literally didn't even almost understand the question. He acted like he didn't even understand the question. That I've got an option to throw the football. I'm always going to throw the football. And now you look at Kansas City, they've got Alex Smith. They're not going to pass the football more than they have to. They're going to run the football. In fact, they're one of the best teams in the league right now. So if I'm Peterson, maybe I'm taking a lesson from that, saying, hey, the pass is great, and you can showcase your skills as a play call if you're getting the passing game. But you can showcase your play calling in the running game too. You can do a lot more creative things, especially with the talented offensive line they've got. So, yeah, I would say you've got Wentz, but you've got a lot of other players in offense, and you've got a lot of other talents you brought in, and I'd be utilizing them more often and let Wentz grow. Don't just try and act like he's a full pro right now.
Since you brought up Andy, did the teacher outcoach the student yesterday, at least in terms of adjustments? Because Andy Reid made adjustments at halftime to get the ball out of Alex Smith's hands quicker, and it doesn't look like Doug Peterson ever made any adjustments to try to get back to the running game.
I would say that he definitely schooled his former pupil. I would say he definitely did that. And that's the thing. Reid knows. I think that one of the big things is Reid knows what kind of team he has. He knows what his team's strengths are. He knows what he needs to do. He knows what Alex Smith can and can't do. And he's going to go to Mahomes eventually, but he knows what Alex Smith can and can't do. And Alex Smith is actually a much better quarterback than people give him credit for. So they can ask him to do things if they need to. So I think he finds situations when he wants to ask Smith to do that. But otherwise, no, he says, look, I've got Kareem Hunt. That's my new toy. I'm going to lean on him as much as I can. And again, maybe Peterson could look at that and go, okay, he doesn't have Kareem Hunt, but you've got three talented running backs. And I would find ways to tailor the game plan more around them and then let Wentz be your counterpuncher.
Well, on that, Pete asked you about that new toy, Carson Wentz. I kind of surmise, and I want to get your opinion on this, Casey, when you watch him. It's not that he can't do some of the things they're asking him to do. It's just that they ask him to do too much. He's got some weapons. I think he needs to work on his accuracy. He holds the ball a little bit. I mean, he makes some bad decisions still. The interception, I mean, he's just trying to throw that ball away. But in trying to throw it away, he's kind of trying to make a play at the same time. It just seems that they ask him to do so much that it leads him into making mistakes. Yeah,
and the thing is he doesn't – right now, Wentz – the metric that stood out for me was he was off target on 42.9% of his throws when he was under pass rush pressure. And I compare that, he's not Tom Brady, but I did an analysis on Tom Brady for the ESPN Insider article. It's going to run tomorrow. It showed when the Saints got pass pressure on Brady, he just destroyed them. He just completely ignored the pass rush. Wentz doesn't ignore the pass rush yet. Maybe he never will. Maybe he's going to always feel it to a certain extent. So I think that's part of the jitteriness, and it's part of why you got to calm him down too. He's not going to be accurate when he's under pressure. He's going to try to make plays when he should. He's not going to throw the ball away when he should. That's who he is at this point. And I'm a Alshon Jeffrey proponent. I think he's a very good receiver, but he's not a guy that creates a lot of separation. So he doesn't give you a lot of room to correct errors. So I think you've got to understand that about the passing game as well. That Wentz doesn't have receivers who can erase some of his mistakes.
Yeah, he seems to be leaning on Ertz, who had a good game, 5 for 97, a couple drops there by Torrey Smith. I thought the one ball in the end zone, Smith's got to make that catch. He makes the adjustment. He turns around, hits him in the hands. He had another one hit him in the hands. So, I mean, there's certainly more weapons on this team than Wentz had last year. There's no question about that. But when you're asking him to throw the ball 50 times, he's on pace for, 680 throws this year? I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, just look at Baltimore last year. Baltimore last year was, they were throwing the football a ton. I think they led the league in attempts last season, and that's not what they wanted to be. They had a team that could do something else, and yet so we're going to have to keep throwing the football because that's just what they ended up leaning towards, and that's what I'm seeing with the Eagles are like, you guys don't have to be that team. You've got a good possession receiver in Jeffrey who can also do some other things, but you've got Terrell at the top of the defense guy in Smith, and yeah, he does have to make that catch. 2 years ago, he led the league in vertical yards per attempt because he made those catches. Maybe he just needs to shake off the rust and getting open deep, but it's good that he's getting open and being able to get in position to make those catches. I think he'll make more as the season progresses, but you've got a lot of other talents on this offense, and there's no reason to make it a Wentz-centric offense. I just think they keep scratching try to make such a Wentz-centric offense. You don't need to. He's very good, but you've got a lot of other players, and if you really showcase your play calling skills, you can do what's
Casey Joyner with us here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Casey, I want to take a look at the Eagles defense because they did play well versus a good offense. Mike talked about the one home run play that Hunt got, but they kept him in check, 8 yards on 7 carries at one point until that home run play went off. The front four specifically, though, Casey, is that the real deal? Are they for real?
I think they are, and the thing is Kansas City right now, their good blocking rate for the first 2 weeks. Last year, Pittsburgh led the league in good blocking rate with blocking rate. So Kansas City is blocking as well as the best offensive lines in football, as good as you could expect any offensive line to block in the league. So for the Eagles to have held the running game in check for as long as they did, and frankly, if there's a miss, safety count to get it, and he didn't get it. He hit that tackle.
Looks like we're kind of having a bad connection with Casey. He's down there in Florida, and hopefully we can have him jump back on here because I do want to get his take on tonight's game between the Giants and Lions too. But his thoughts on the defensive line, they're the real deal. I agree with him. I think that they have depth. They come at you. Derek Barnett's getting better. This team defensively on the line is going to get better.
Chris Long had a sack yesterday. You don't see that a lot. It's more of a coverage sack. I tweeted out about that. But Derek Barnett did quietly have a good game, and Bo Allen in a reserve role. I mean, look, their front seven's pretty legit. Jim Schwartz did a nice job, too, of mixing the blitzes in, and Michael Kendricks cleaned up for the one sack there. But definitely the front four, Graham, Cox, Jernigan, and Curry, they got after Alex Smith yesterday. All
right, Casey, we'll let you finish up on that defensive front because, I think they're the real deal because they got depth, too, on that line. They come at you with more than just a couple of guys. There's 4, 5, 6 guys. I mean, if you throw Curry in there, who's been playing better this year.
Yeah, I was mentioning that Kansas City's run blocking right now is as good as Pittsburgh's was last year, and Pittsburgh led the league in good blocking rate. So to hold them to as good as they did for most of the game, to hold their running game in check is a good sign for the defense. Plus, if the safety makes a tackle on that big run by Hunt, it's a 12-yard gain instead of a 50-yard gain, and the metrics look even better. So that you can't blame that in the front. You can't entirely blame that on the front four because, look, the safeties are supposed to come make those tackles. So I like what they did on their front seven. I think that it's a good sign. And, again, the measuring stick is this is one of the best offensive lines in the league in Kansas City. So I wouldn't be feeling bad about how they played.
All right, Casey Joyner here. Moving forward, 1-1, Eagles through 2 games. Did you feel okay coming back home, getting your first game, or are you disappointed the way the game go yesterday if you're an Eagles fan?
I would be happy about how the game went because look, that Kansas City team, that's one of the best teams in the league, and to go on the road and nearly be able to pull off the upset. Yeah, in fact, they probably arguably should have pulled off the upset. Say, okay, if the team plays at that level the rest of the season, I think it's going to be a very good season. So it's disappointing to have the loss, but I think I think overall the performance was good enough to if you play that well all season, you win 10 games.
I do want to throw this in because the Eagles they lost Caleb Sturridge, they end up missing a kick. Special teams, Dave Phipp, they've been one of the better units in the league. Did special teams have a factor in yesterday's game?
Yeah, ESPN Stats Information has a metric called Special Teams Expected Points Added. It just basically means how much did your special teams impact the scoreboard versus where it should be expected to hit the scoreboard. They were at minus 4.4. It's not a very good number, but here's the thing. Part of it was the field goal unit, but the punting unit. If you look at the punting metrics, you'd say, okay, these teams, they look very even between how the teams did yesterday. But Philadelphia Philadelphia's punting game lost them 3.6 points according to the special teams expected points added metric. Lost 3.6 points. That's why Philadelphia, on every drive, they were starting 10 yards further downfield than Kansas City. Had 11 drives, and they started 10 yards worse. So there's 110 lost yards right there in field position. So that's something they need to fix because they can't survive that all season long.
Tonight we got Giants and Lions. This is interesting. A team that doesn't score much against a team that scores a lot. 35 last week for the Lions. Very good defense for the Giants, though. Very intriguing matchup for Monday Night Football.
It is, and if Beckham is at full strength or close to full strength, I think that the Giants' offense is suddenly going to look a whole lot better because he's just the guy they can't replace. They've got a lot of talent in their offense. Their running game should be better than it is. Wouldn't be surprised to see them rotate some carries away from Perkins over to Darkwa and start, maybe mix some Vereen in there too. But they've got a lot more talent on that team than they showed in Week 1, and I picked them to win this game.
All right, should be a fun one tonight. It's Giants and Lions right here on 97.3 ESPN. We'll get a quick hit on you on a couple of the NFC East games yesterday. What happened to Dallas?
Dallas had the lowest good blocking rate they've had in the past 2 seasons. You hear the coach blaming it on Prescott. Prescott needs to be able to help that situation and help the offense out by getting the defense away from stuff in the run. But their blocking stunk because they've replaced 2 offensive line starters from last year, and it's showing up. They're not as good as they were last year.
Washington on the road, nothing really stood out. I mean, Cousins didn't play great. Kelly got hurt. Big loss there. But what do you think of Washington?
Yeah, Kelly is a big loss, and I think that game said as much about how good the Rams are this year. I think it's that Washington won the game. Some people are probably surprised they didn't win them more, but the Rams are a better team. So that's actually a quality win for Washington because the Rams are a team that Goff is getting better, and there's a lot of talent on that club. I think that could be a 6, 7, 8 win team this year.
Yeah, there's a lot of high picks on that team. We'll see if they all work out. Also, sad news in the world of wrestling yesterday. Casey Joyner, ESPN, WWE. I know you had a story about Bobby Heenan. Bobby the Brain passed away yesterday. Probably the greatest wrestling manager of all time.
Yeah, pretty much however you want to measure it. He had to be the best, whether you do kayfabe or not. But I ran into him at WrestleCon here in Orlando a few months ago before this WrestleMania. He was there. He's in bad shape. Most of his mouth is gone and things. And we bought a book from him because he was selling books there with his wife. And after he gave me the book, he said something. I couldn't understand it, so I had to ask his wife, what did he say? He said it's a good bathroom book. He said you can read it in the bathroom. If you don't like it, you can tear the pages out and use it as toilet paper. He had it until the very end. He never lost that sense of humor, man. He's a legend.
He was the best. Bobby the Brain passed away yesterday. Casey Joyner back on Friday. He will give us the matchups to watch for Eagles-Giants. That's after he watches Giants and Lions tonight. 97.3 ESPN's coverage of that game begins at 8 p.m. Thanks, pal.
Appreciate it, guys.